Silence, then a collective gasp, a tremor through the MMA world that felt less like an earthquake and more like a cosmic joke. It wasn't just a rumor, it was a bombshell. Makhachev versus Della Maddalena, again? The moment the graphic hit our screens, the internet erupted. Hashtags exploded, forums melted down, and millions of jaws collectively dropped. "You're kidding me," one fan typed, his sentiment echoed by a bewildered multitude. "This has to be fake," another insisted, even as the official channels slowly, unbelievably confirmed it. Makhachev versus Jack Della Maddalena, 2. The mere thought sends shivers down the spine of any fight fan, not just for the spectacle, but for the sheer, bewildering impossibility of it. Remember the first one? The fight that nobody saw coming? The clash of titans from vastly different worlds that ended in such a vortex of controversy it left the entire sport spinning on its axis? We thought that chapter was closed, sealed shut with a stamp of unprecedented and never again. But here we are. The sequel. The rematch that defied logic, mocked expectation, and yet somehow is now a reality. This isn't just another fight announcement. It's a fundamental challenge to everything we thought we knew about matchmaking, weight classes, and the very fabric of fair competition. How did we get here? How did the UFC convince two men, one a lightweight emperor, the other a welterweight knockout artist, to step into the octagon once more after the chaos that was their first encounter? What forces conspired? What narratives twisted? What fan fervor boiled over to force the promotion's hand? This isn't just about two elite athletes settling a score. It's about the very soul of the sport, bending and breaking under the weight of an almost mythical and undeniably unbelievable rivalry. Prepare yourselves, because the story of Makhachev versus Della Maddalena 2 isn't just a fight. It's a phenomenon that will redefine legacies, challenge perceptions, and leave us all wondering, are we dreaming? The disbelief is palpable, the anticipation excruciating. This is the story of the rematch that UFC fans still can't quite believe is happening.
Before the collision, there were two distinct paths, two ascensions to greatness unfolding in parallel universes of the UFC. On one side, Islam Makhachev, the embodiment of Dagestani dominance. Hailing from the same fiercely competitive mountains as his mentor, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Islam's journey through the lightweight division was less a climb and more a methodical, unyielding march. His record, a testament to his suffocating pressure, his unparalleled wrestling, and an ever-evolving striking game. He wasn't just winning, he was dismantling. Opponents found themselves trapped in a submission labyrinth, their will broken under the relentless tide of his ground game. Pundits universally lauded him as a generational talent, a champion who would define an era, his path seemingly destined for a long, undisputed reign at 155 pounds. His physical presence, his technical mastery, his unwavering focus all screamed champion. There was simply no one like him in his division, a truly dominant force. Then, across the MMA landscape, a different storm was brewing, Jack Della Maddalena. From the sun-drenched shores of Australia, JDM burst onto the welterweight scene with a ferocity that turned heads and shattered jaws. Unlike Makhachev's grappling heavy artistry, Della Maddalena was a striker, a pugilist with precision, power, and an unshakable confidence in his hands. His knockouts were not flukes, they were surgical, the result of masterful footwork, intelligent pressure, and a killer instinct that few possess. His rise through the 170-pound ranks was swift and brutal, leaving a trail of unconscious opponents in his wake. He was the antithesis of Makhachev, a stand-up assassin whose every fight promised fireworks and a potential finish. The idea of these two crossing paths, much less sharing an octagon, was a ludicrous fantasy. A lightweight grappling wizard versus a welterweight striking phenom. They existed in different weight classes, operated with contrasting styles, and followed separate championship trajectories. Their careers were like parallel lines, destined never to intersect. Or so we thought. The natural order of the sport, the sacred divisions that separated giants from agile warriors, seemed to guarantee their segregation. But the UFC, in its infinite wisdom and insatiable hunger for spectacle, found a way to tear down those walls, creating a rift in the very fabric of MMA that would lead to the most unthinkable encounter. What possessed them to book the first fight? What madness overtook the matchmakers to pit these two titans against each other, seemingly against all logic and reason? The answer lies in the tantalizing potential for chaos, for a moment so shocking, so utterly unpredictable, that it would transcend the sport itself. And transcend it did. The whispers began subtly, then grew into a roar. A catchweight bout, 165 pounds. Makhachev versus Della Maddalena. The MMA world scoffed, then gasped.
It was unthinkable, a freak show according to some, a bold experiment to others. The narrative leading up to that fateful night was dominated by skepticism. Could Islam handle the power of a natural welterweight? Could JDM defend the relentless takedowns of a lightweight champion? The questions hung heavy in the air, electric with anticipation. On fight night, the atmosphere was thick with a palpable tension, a sense that we were about to witness something truly unprecedented. From the opening bell, the fight defied every preordained narrative. Della Maddalena, usually the aggressor, employed a surprisingly evasive strategy, utilizing his footwork to keep Makhachev at bay, landing sharp, surprising jabs and quick combinations that snapped Islam's head back. The crowd roared with every significant strike from JDM, stunned by his ability to keep the lightweight king from closing the distance. Makhachev, for his part, struggled. His usual effortless takedowns met with surprising resistance, JDM's balance and strength at the heavier weight proving more resilient than expected. The first round saw Islam land only one significant takedown, a stark contrast to his usual suffocating opening assaults, and Della Maddalena landed several clean, powerful shots that drew audible gasps from the arena. Rounds 2 and 3 became a chess match of frustration and fleeting success. Islam finally secured more dominant grappling positions, but JDM, incredibly, managed to scramble back to his feet multiple times, showing an uncharacteristic resilience against Makhachev's world-class control. The crowd was a manic symphony of cheers and boos, each successful strike from JDM answered by a powerful slam or control time from Islam. By the championship rounds, both men were visibly fatigued, their wills tested. Makhachev, bruised but determined, pressed for takedowns, desperate to assert his dominance. Della Maddalena, bloodied but unbowed, unleashed flurries that seemed to crackle with desperate energy. The final bell rang and the arena erupted not in celebration, but in a cacophony of confusion. The scorecards, 3 judges. The first read, 48-47 Makhachev, a collective groan. The second, 48-47 Della Maddalena, a roar of disbelief from half the crowd, wild cheers from the other. The third, 48-47 for Jack Della Maddalena. The arena plunged into a chaotic maelstrom, a split decision for JDM. The collective consciousness of MMA simply shattered. It wasn't just a win, it was an upset of cosmic proportions, a victory so shocking, so razor-thin, and so fiercely debated that it instantly became one of the most controversial outcomes in UFC history. Islam Makhachev, the seemingly invincible lightweight champion, had tasted defeat at a catchweight against a welterweight striker. The fight that should never have happened had just delivered an outcome that nobody, absolutely nobody, could have predicted.
The immediate aftermath of Makhachev versus Della Maddalena 1 wasn't just a discussion, it was an inferno. Social media became a battleground, a digital coliseum where enraged fans clashed over every punch, every takedown, every second of control time. "Robbery of the century," screamed one faction, brandishing statistics of Islam's ground control and grappling exchanges. "JDM earned it. He stuffed takedowns. He landed cleaner shots," retorted the other, pointing to Della Maddalena's surprisingly effective striking and defense against the fence. The airwaves were no less volatile. Every MMA pundit, journalist, and former fighter was forced to take a side, dissecting the fight frame by frame, trying to make sense of the chaos. Split-screen analysis showed Islam's relentless pressure, the sheer willpower he exhibited to get the fight to the ground, juxtaposed with JDM's moments of brilliance, the shocking power he generated that for fleeting seconds had Makhachev on the back foot. The debate wasn't just about who won, but how. Had the judges scored aggression over effective striking, control time over damage? The criteria themselves felt twisted and arbitrary in the wake of such a peculiar bout. Islam Makhachev, ever the stoic, accepted the decision with a quiet dignity, but his eyes betrayed a simmering dissatisfaction. There was no outrage, no public outcry from his camp, but a palpable sense of injustice lingered. This was a man who rarely tasted defeat, and to have it come in such a controversial, ambiguous manner at a catchweight against a natural welterweight felt like a stain on his otherwise pristine record. Jack Della Maddalena, meanwhile, was thrust into an unfamiliar spotlight. His victory, while historic, was immediately tarnished by the controversy. Was he truly the better fighter that night, or had the judges simply misread the nuances of a highly complex clash of styles? Even in victory, a shadow of doubt persisted, fueled by the relentless social media storm. The narrative quickly solidified. For many, Islam had been robbed.
The weight disparity, the stylistic clash, the split decision, it all coalesced into a potent cocktail of fan fury and a desperate demand for clarification. The question wasn't if there should be a rematch, but how could there not be? The controversy became a living, breathing entity, permeating every corner of the MMA world. The UFC had, perhaps unintentionally, created an accidental rivalry, a debate so fierce it threatened to overshadow every other storyline. The fans, still reeling from the shock of the first fight's outcome, couldn't fathom a world where such a contentious result stood unchallenged. The sheer volume of discussion, the endless memes, the passionate arguments, it all pointed to one undeniable truth. The fans, against their better judgment, against the perceived sanctity of weight classes, now needed a second act. They couldn't believe the first one happened, and now they couldn't believe it wouldn't happen again. The seeds of the unbelievable rematch were firmly sown in the fertile ground of outrage and unanswered questions.
In the chaotic aftermath of the first fight, the demand for a rematch wasn't just a suggestion, it was a tidal wave. UFC President Dana White, initially perhaps hesitant to revisit such a controversial and logistically challenging pairing, found himself caught between a rock and a hard place. Every press conference became a barrage of questions about Makhachev versus Della Maddalena too. He'd offer non-committal answers, acknowledging the noise but emphasizing the complexities. Yet, behind the scenes, the numbers were undeniable. The first fight, despite its controversial outcome, had generated unprecedented buzz, turning casual fans into rabid obsessives, desperate for a resolution. The financial incentives, the money fight potential, became too immense to ignore. The political maneuvering was intense. Islam Makhachev, pride-wounded but unwavering, began to subtly campaign for a chance to set the record straight. His camp, notoriously strategic, knew that a decisive victory against Della Maddalena, even at a catchweight, would erase any lingering doubts and further solidify his legacy. He wouldn't just be avenging a loss, he'd be proving the perceived fluke was exactly that. On the other side, Jack Della Maddalena, while basking in the glow of his improbable victory, also faced pressure. To some, his win was legitimate, a testament to his skill. To others, it was tainted, a product of controversial judging. A rematch offered him the chance to silence the doubters, to prove his victory was no accident, and that he truly belonged in the conversation with the sport's elite. Both fighters, despite their initial reluctance or the logistical hurdles, recognized the immense career implications of a second clash. Other fighters and pundits weighed in, further fanning the flames. Some argued vehemently against the rematch, citing the persistent weight disparity as unfair, or fearing another controversial outcome that would only further muddy the waters. Let Islam defend his belt at lightweight, they urged. Let JDM continue his climb at welterweight. But their voices were drowned out by the roar of the masses. Social media polls showed an overwhelming mandate for a rematch, the fans hungry for closure, for a definitive answer to the question that plagued them: who was truly better? The UFC, a master of spectacle and a keen listener to the dollar signs of fan demand, eventually relented. The negotiations were protracted, fraught with demands for specific weight clauses, bigger purses, and guaranteed championship implications. But slowly, painstakingly, the pieces began to fall into place. The pressure, both from the fans and the fighters themselves, proved insurmountable. The politics, the debates, the sheer undeniable allure of such an impossible rematch twisted arms and turned heads. What started as an almost accidental clash, fueled by circumstance, was now a deliberate, high-stakes sequel, birthed from the very controversy it created. The unbelievable was becoming inevitable, driven by a collective thirst for a definitive outcome, no matter how illogical or unprecedented it seemed.
As the rematch looms, the analysis has reached fever pitch. Every facet of the first fight is being reevaluated, every training session scrutinized, every past performance dissected. The tale of the tape now holds a different meaning. It's not just about stats, but about how those stats intersect with the ghost of their first encounter. How will Islam Makhachev adapt? His camp, undoubtedly, will have pored over every frame of their initial clash. Will he abandon his training altogether, opting for an immediate, suffocating wrestling assault from the first second? Or will he try to prove a point, standing with JDM longer than expected, risking a repeat of those early worrying exchanges? The psychological warfare is already underway. Makhachev's reputation, his aura of invincibility, took a hit in that first fight. The pressure on him to not just win, but to dominate this time is immense. This isn't just a fight, it's a redemption arc, a chance to reclaim his undisputed status, even if at a catchweight.
For Jack Della Maddalena, the stakes are equally monumental. His victory, while celebrated, was often attributed to a lucky punch or a controversial decision. This rematch is his opportunity to legitimize that win, to prove that his power, his precision, and his defensive grappling improvements were not flukes. Can he once again fend off the relentless takedowns of the lightweight king? Has he evolved enough to close the gaps in his ground defense, or will Islam simply be too overwhelming this time? Experts are divided. Some predict a completely different fight, with Makhachev making the necessary adjustments to secure a dominant grappling victory, perhaps even a submission. Others foresee JDM's hands being too potent, too precise, arguing that a second exposure to Islam's style will only make Della Maddalena even more dangerous. The weight class debate still rages. While agreed upon, the 165-pound catchweight continues to be a point of contention. Does it favor JDM, closer to his natural weight, or does it still force Makhachev to fight at a slight disadvantage against a physically larger man? The what-ifs are endless. What if JDM lands an early knockout blow? What if Islam secures an early submission? What if it goes to the judges again, risking another wave of controversy? Fans, despite their initial disbelief, are now fully immersed in the speculation, debating the nuances, picking sides, and meticulously analyzing every scrap of information. The promotional campaigns lean heavily into the unfinished business narrative, the idea that the first fight was merely a prologue to this epic, defining chapter. This rematch isn't just about athletic prowess. It's a deeply personal, career-defining moment for both men, with implications that will ripple through the UFC for years to come. The stakes couldn't be higher, the questions couldn't be more pressing, and the anticipation, despite the lingering disbelief, has reached a fever pitch.
And so, here we stand. After the shock, the disbelief, the outrage, the debates, and the endless speculation, the impossible has become undeniably real. Makhachev versus Jack Della Maddalena 2. A rematch forged in the fires of controversy, driven by an insatiable fan demand, and defying almost every logical convention of mixed martial arts. The initial reaction was, "I can't believe this is happening." Now, that sentiment has evolved, morphing into a nervous, almost giddy anticipation. We still can't quite believe it, but we're ready. We're ready for the sequel to the most unpredictable fight in recent memory, a clash that promises to resolve the lingering questions, or perhaps create even more. This fight isn't just about two warriors entering the octagon. It's about the very narrative of the UFC itself. It's a testament to the unpredictable nature of combat sports, where narratives can be rewritten in an instant, and fan passion can literally reshape the landscape of championship contention. For Islam Makhachev, this is more than a fight. It's a crusade for redemption, a chance to reassert his dominance and erase the shadow of a controversial defeat. His legacy, already immense, now hinges on this moment of clarification. For Jack Della Maddalena, it's the ultimate proving ground, an opportunity to legitimize a victory that many still deem a fluke and to cement his place among the elite, regardless of weight class. He stands on the precipice of not just a win, but a statement that will echo through the annals of MMA history. What will this unprecedented rematch mean for the sport? Will it set a new precedent for money fights overriding traditional weight class structures? Will it redefine what constitutes a legitimate rivalry? Or will it simply serve as a spectacular, chaotic footnote, a singular event that defies replication? The answers lie within the octagon. The fans, initially incredulous, are now buzzing, the disbelief slowly giving way to a raw, undeniable excitement. They will be watching, glued to their screens, debating every punch, every takedown, every second of this improbable sequel. Because while they may still whisper, "I can't believe this is happening," deep down, they know they wouldn't miss it for the world. This is Makhachev versus Della Maddalena 2, the unbelievable reality. A new chapter in MMA history is about to be written, and we are all about to bear witness.